interview Mark Weisbrot. He is co-director of the Center for Economic and Policy Research. He's also one of the writers of the new Oliver Stone movie, South of the Border, which has created a tremendous amount of controversy. Mark, welcome to the Young Turks.
Thanks. Great to be here again.
Absolutely great to have you. All right. First, tell us what South of the Border is for those of the people that don't know.
Well, it's most of it is an interview with 7 presidents, 1 former president in mostly South America. Also, Cuba was included, and it's a look at some of the big changes that have taken place, primarily in South America, but in Latin America in general, where this whole region of the world that used to be called the United States backyard is now more independent of the United States than Europe is. And why kind of looks at what the vision of these presidents is, and the common vision they have for the region, and kind of an antidote to what the media has portrayed these changes as. It's mostly negative here in the United States. It's seen as kind of anti-American or...
Right. Now, Mark, look, this Hugo Chavez is an obvious pinko commie. Are you guys supporting him in the movie? Is that what I hear?
Well, the movie gives another point of view. It definitely looks at him differently than you would see in the media, where he's demonized constantly, probably more than any democratically elected president in the world. And so it gives another side on that too. Yeah.
So, okay, in all seriousness, let's get into it. Obviously, a lot of people are mad about this. You got the New York Times, or at least one of the writers on the New York Times, who are saying that you guys aren't portraying it accurately. Apparently, Maria Conchita Alonso, one of the first ever guests on the Young Turks, is also going to be protesting Oliver Stone. And so that goes to the heart of the. So they're challenging you guys. It goes to the heart of the question of what is really happening. Are these countries anti-American? But let's be even more specific. Let's concentrate on Venezuela, because they're saying, hey, no, Hugo Chavez is dictatorial in a lot of ways, authoritarian, and you guys are being presenting an overly friendly image of him, and he's not as you guys say. What's the truth?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, first of all, the New York Times, the guy who reviewed it, just gave the overall review. Stephen Holden gave it a fairly favorable review. It was Larry Roeder who put this huge article that took up the whole front page with this giant picture of Oliver's face of the arts section, and wrote 1,665 words. And he did not challenge it on the political grounds that you just suggested. He instead tried to discredit it by claiming that there were factual errors. And if you go to our website, you can see that on every one of the factual errors that he alleged, it was actually he who made the factual error.
Yeah, I hear you on that. But talk to me about Hugo Chavez, because I've had some issues with him based on what I've seen. But maybe I'm getting a twisted view. It's very possible I'm getting a twisted view on it. But it seemed like there was, for example, recently a power grab that he was trying to do. Seems like he tries to shut down some of the media against him every once in a while. Am I seeing that wrong?
Yes. I mean, first of all, the media in Venezuela is much more oppositional than almost any in the entire hemisphere. It's much more opposed to the government. The only one I would say that might be worse would be Bolivia, where it's just, outrageous. It's like Fox News everywhere. In Venezuela, it's like that for the vast majority of the media, as measured by audience, television, radio, newspapers. So, yeah, the impression that you get here that there's some kind of, lack of free expression there, that's absolutely ridiculous. It's much more oppositional than what we have in the United States. Now, that said, there have been some incidents. There's no doubt about it. There have been only a handful, but there have been some incidents. But they're kind of murky. Well, one of them's not murky at all. I mean, the biggest incident that you saw in the media in Venezuela, in our media, in terms of the relations with the press in Venezuela, was in 2007, when the largest and oldest TV station in the country, RCTV, was denied a renewal of their broadcast license. However, they would not have gotten a broadcast license in the United States or any democratic country because they had actively tried to overthrow the government more than once. So but they didn't shut them down. Okay, they continued on cable and satellite, and they continued to have the largest audience in the country with just cable and satellite. So there isn't censorship. Now this year they had another conflict with the government 3 years later because they claimed that they were not a domestic TV station. They claimed that they were international and then therefore not subject to federal regulation. And they lost that case. And so they were also temporarily shut down. This time they were shut down temporarily for failure to recognize domestic regulation.
All right, we're talking to Mark Weisbrot. He's an economist and co-director for the Center for Economic Policy Research, but he's also one of the writers of the new Oliver Stone documentary, South of the Border. So, Mark, let's get to the heart of the documentary. What's the thesis here? Is it that we've been keeping these countries down in some way?
Well, that's just the history. I mean, look what the United States has done in Latin America. It's not ancient history either. I mean, look at that coup in Honduras. That was just 1 year ago. And look what the Obama administration did. They did everything they could possibly do to help that government survive, elect a new government under a dictatorship, which nobody else, almost nobody recognized. They still don't recognize. South America still doesn't recognize that government. The OAS, the EU didn't send observers because it was an election that took place under conditions that, were for the whole campaign period. They were beating and arresting people, killing them,
Mark,
raiding the TV station. And so what is Hillary Clinton doing? She's down there now trying to get other governments to recognize this government that nobody wants to recognize. So, yeah, we have the same foreign policy we had under Bush, okay, in Latin America. I don't see anyone disputing that. In fact, Time magazine, a news article ran a headline not that long ago that just said Obama's Latin America policy looks like Bush's. So that's the fact. That's what we've been doing, all along, and that is one of the reasons why people elected these more independent-minded governments.
But Mark, first, when that coup happened, I remember Obama coming out against it.
Let's just take it a little one step at a time, okay? The first statement that came out of the White House was one of the only ones in the entire world that did not condemn the coup at all. It just said that all parties should work together to try and restore democracy, okay? No condemnation. Now, then, after other countries started to condemn it, then, of course, the Obama administration had to do it, okay? And then, but they still didn't say, they would never, for 5 months, they wouldn't say what the United Nations said, what the Organization of American States said, what the Rio Group said, which was called for the immediate and unconditional restoration of the democratically elected president.
So,
those
Mark,
words were never uttered by the Obama administration, and that sent a very strong signal to the people who overthrew that government that was diplomatic language for we're on your side. And I can go through the whole 5 months with you if you want. I mean, I wrote
No, please don't. Okay, Mark, let me just ask the more simple question. Why? Well, why is in your estimation, the Obama State Department going with a totally right-wing position on this issue?
On this issue and on Latin America policy in general, I think, you have to ask them that, really. I can't speak for them. But if you want my guess, I would say that look who his Secretary of State is. I mean, why isn't she president today? It was because she was a stubborn supporter of the Iraq War. That's one main reason. I mean, she might have lost anyway, but that killed it for her. So that's, she represents a very Cold War kind of foreign policy. And is Obama going to overrule her on a region that he probably, spent less time on last week than we just spent talking about it? Probably not. So there you go. The State Department is running foreign policy, and Obama, is letting them do it. And
well, that paints an ugly picture that Hillary Clinton is totally right-wing and that Obama is nearly clueless on it.
I don't know that he's clueless. It's just not I'm not letting him off the hook. I'm just saying that he probably doesn't care very much either way. He's got 2 wars in the Middle East. He's got an economy that is barely recovering. And those are the things that are going to determine whether he gets reelected. In Latin America, is a very low priority for him. That's what I would say.
So overall, Mark, let's go back to the movie, which is South of the Border, coming out. It's actually already out in New York and has actually sold more tickets per theater than any other movie in New York right now. Just coming to L.A. now, and then will get released more throughout the country. So the people at home that might not be familiar with this are thinking, okay, but why have we been right-wing? Why have we supported the dictators? Why have we done the coups? What's our whole point in Latin America?
Well, I mean, it goes back to the Monroe Doctrine. I mean, this is the United States has always seen this as a region that they kind of own, and this is the mentality. I mean, I live in Washington. I see it every day here. There isn't this idea. They don't even have, most of the so-called experts here don't even have a concept of self-determination. And democracy, they're okay with democracy as long as the people vote the way they want them to. And when they don't, then they have a problem. And so it's fairly simple, really. It's about power. And that's how they're looking at it.
Isn't it also about money?
It's money. Money and power go together. I don't want to deny that, too. That helps. But, I think... and I think we had this discussion before. I focus more on the power because I think that that drives it more. I mean, these corporations could make money. The example I always give is the oil companies still made a lot of money under Chavez. In fact, Venezuela actually has, even now, they've renegotiated a lot of the agreements that they had with the foreign oil companies. They're not getting the same deal they had before, but they actually allow more foreign investment than most of the other, any of the other OPEC countries, and even Mexico. Mexico doesn't allow foreign private investment in the extraction of oil in Mexico. So, they can still make money there.
But they're making less, though, aren't they? Because now Hugo Chavez is taking a higher percentage for the Venezuelan government.
Yeah, and so is Ecuador, and of course Bolivia too. And I think that's true. I mean, that's their preference. But they don't go as far as the State Department goes. The biggest oil companies did not really want our government to destabilize that country and try to overthrow the government. They would rather have stability. They're willing, I think, very often they're more willing to compromise than our government is.
That's interesting. I'm not sure I buy that thesis. I'm not sure I buy that thesis because money drives a lot of things, whereas power, like Obama or Hillary or George Bush, what have they felt like? I control Latin America.
Look at the coup in Honduras. You had some of the big companies there. The contractors for the textiles and Walmart and they didn't like the coup, and that was the State Department really supporting that. There are cases, don't get me wrong. I mean, there are cases where it's just corporate interests, and in the long run, of course, these guys are looking out. They want to run the world, and part of the reasons they want to run the world is for their corporations and banks and everything else. But they have a drive that is really power and empire. I mean, I don't think they're in Afghanistan for the minerals, for example.
Right.
And I think a lot of it is about power.
Mark,
that's why
let me ask you one last question. How, and it's related to the movie, but not about the content. How'd you wind up getting the gig? How does Oliver Stone find you, or how do you find him in doing this movie together?
Well, it wasn't that hard to find me. I mean, I've been writing about Venezuela for the last 8 years, and hardly anyone else in the United States has, especially about the economy.
So when he looked around,
and not
he's
just
like,
Venezuela. I mean, I've been writing. What's that?
So when Oliver Stone looked around and read some stuff, he's like, "Well, Mark's the guy." Huh? Is that how it worked?
Well, I mean, yeah, I think so. That was pretty much it. I mean, I've written not just about Venezuela, but a lot of the other countries and the presidents that we interviewed. So I think that's what that's what he found interesting.
All right.
But I think I think it's a movie that a lot of people would like. It's an entertaining film. It's not too long, hour and 15 minutes, and I think it's worth seeing just to get the other side of the story that you really don't get in the media here.
Right. And I'll tell you, look, we do opinion on this show, and I haven't seen the movie yet, but I read a lot about it because we were having you on, and I read all the controversies, and the claims and the counterclaims, etc. Now I'm totally jazzed to see it because I want to see the case that you guys laid out. I'm very interested in that. So it's called South of the Border, coming out in L.A. soon and then throughout the country. Mark Weisbrot, one of the writers. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.